My name is Cheri DiNovo. I'm the MPP for Parkdale-High Park, and next week I will be tabling a bill for tenants' rights. It really is the answer to the bedbug issue that has been confounding people of late. A couple of Q&A, and then I'm going to introduce our panelists here. Bottom line is, how will the bill prevent bedbugs? My bill will be calling for landlord licensing. That is to say that if you have outstanding work orders including infestations of bedbugs, you would not be able to renew your license, hence you would not be able to rent to anyone. This is working in a number of other jurisdictions across Canada and the United States, and has worked extremely well. How is this bill different from Cole's private member's bill? Well, basically, what his bill does is force you to disclose infestations. We're saying that's not good enough, and in fact, the disclosure of infestation has led to discrimination against tenants because landlords also check these registries, and then they refuse to rent to tenants who come from infected buildings. What we need is to force landlords to do the right thing, and that's to get rid of the bugs in the first place. I think other things I'll cover in the Q&A at the end, but just to introduce our panel here, we have Ken Hale. He's not a stranger to this place. He's the Director of Advocacy and Legal Services at ACTO, the Advocacy Centre for Tenants in Ontario. Next to him is Edward Lance. He's the Chair of the St. Jamestown chapter of ACORN, the Association of Community Organizations for Reform Now, and he's been an active member of the community for years. And next to him, Carolyn Peters. We're delighted to have Carolyn here. She worked at the Ministry of Housing, most recently in Madeleine Meilleur's office. And Carolyn has a social work degree, left Queen's Park in 2007. Since then, one of her jobs has been as a rental agent for one of Toronto's larger landlords, a job during which she was asked, basically told, to rent infected apartments. So we know this is a problem. She's not the only rental agent out there that's showing and renting infected apartments. And we feel that the answer are more tenants' rights and landlord licensing. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the panel discussion over to Ken, and we'll proceed from there. Ken, welcome.
Thank you, Cheri. We are very pleased to see the introduction of a bill that seeks to improve the balance between the rights of landlords and the rights of tenants as a comprehensive way of approaching bedbug problems and problems of insecurity and dangerous conditions that tenants put up with all across the province. ACTO is part of a legal clinic system that has community legal clinics in most of the communities across Ontario. Every day, people go into those legal clinic offices looking for help with their housing problems, looking for steps that they can take to make the houses that they're paying for decent, safe for their families, looking for ways to find places that they can afford that won't take all their income just to put a roof over their head. And this bill, with its comprehensive approach of licensing landlords in order to keep the business honest, and by bringing back some real rent control into the system, not permitting landlords to charge whatever the market will bear on a vacant unit, will bring about conditions where tenants will feel comfortable in complaining, will have a leg to stand on when they complain to someone, and will generally improve our communities as a whole, particularly for those people at the lower end of the income scale who seem to have been forgotten in our rush to deal with all the social problems that the government is facing today. We see tenants every day. Tenants come into community legal clinics facing eviction applications for no reason other than they're paying a modest rent, and the landlord believes that they can get a higher rent if they had a vacant unit. We see families looking for places to live. Their families may have expanded. They may have moved to a different community to follow the employment opportunities, and the cost of housing is making it impossible for them to reach a decent standard of living and fully participate in our community. We see people renting apartments in good faith, putting out the high rents, moving into a place, facing problems like bed bugs, cockroaches, falling ceilings, elevators that don't work, and not having an effective means to enforce what is written in the law, their right to good quality housing. their right to compliance with standards. Why isn't this working? We don't really have the legal tools to make it work. We don't have that balance of power that could make tenants feel secure in standing up and complaining about the conditions that are threatening their safety. And we believe this bill will go a long way to start to redress that balance and will give tenants the legal footing to stand on to tackle these problems on their own, whether as individuals or whether as organizations of tenants.
Thanks, Ken. Thank you very much. And Ed Lance is next. He's the chair of the St. Jamestown chapter of ACORN. Ed, take it away.
Thank you, Cheri. My name is Edward Lance. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the chair of the St. Jamestown chapter, as Cheri has mentioned, and I've been an active member of my community for a little more than 4 years. Now, I'm an ACORN member, and I'm also a very concerned tenant. The reason I'm here today is to talk seriously about the devastating impact of bedbugs in our most vulnerable communities. This issue and proposed legislation must be addressed now. The number of people living with bedbugs is overwhelming in this city alone, and the devastating health and mental effects of bedbugs have been impacting low and moderate income neighborhoods in Toronto and across the province for many, many years. The deplorable living conditions that many tenants have to endure have been ignored by the City of Toronto and the province of Ontario for far too long. ACORN will not stand for this any longer. ACORN is determined to bring the focus of bedbugs back into the communities and the people that it affects the most. It is truly shameful. It's rather scandalous that the government has ignored this very real problem until recently. Now, ACORN has been fighting for about 6 years towards proactive tenant enforcement in the city in order to improve living conditions for tenants. And we now know that we absolutely must have new and effective provincial legislation that protects tenants and holds landlords accountable. We must strengthen rent controls. We must implement landlord licensing. We must improve access to justice for tenants, and we must hold landlords accountable now, not later, but now. This proposed legislation by Cheri DiNovo and the NDP is critical in advancing the rights of tenants province-wide. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ed. And Carolyn.
I couldn't have said it any better. That's my experience of being a rental agent in St. Jamestown. Exactly what you said, Ed, about bedbugs and mental health, and I've seen it firsthand.
Oh, yeah.
And anyway, thank you, Cheri. And yes, I have a background here at Queen's Park, and recently I have been working as a rental agent in St. Jamestown. I was doing it in order to get some social work experience, to try to actually become a social worker, quite frankly. I almost quit my job the very first week I was there, and I almost quit it because of bedbugs. I was terrified of getting them when I found out the extent of the problem. The building was infested. And so I decided I would stay, and I decided to stay for a couple of reasons. One, I needed a job, and number two, I was determined to become a social worker. And so what I did is I thought, okay, what do I need to do to stay here? I need to protect myself. So I talked to colleagues of mine who had been there for years, and I asked what they did to protect themselves from bedbugs. And I did exactly what they told me. I also would only show vacant units that were clean, that had been steamed and sprayed, terms I've just learned about. Steaming is very important before spraying, just so you know, when bedbugs are an issue. Both have to be done. But anyway, I would only show units that were clean, sprayed and steamed.